Hello my soul family, welcome back to the School of Light and to the Spiritual Book Club. My name is Christy Ramirez and I am your teacher. I am also a spiritual influencer, soul coach, and motivational speaker. And today we are here to continue A Course in Miracles series. And today's a very, very interesting chapter. We have chapter 8, The Journey Back. Now, what journey back are we referring to? This is the journey back to home, which is our inner self. So if by whatever reason you've lost your way in life, or anything has distracted you from the spiritual journey, from your ascension, then this is getting back to self, which we can only do in solitude and in hermitude as well, and in deep, deep spiritual reflection. Because that is where we get the insights, the guidance, and directions as to what to do next. So today, let us get started. If you want access to this entire episode today and all the other gatherings as well, make sure that you become a member at christyramirez.com/school. These episodes are timeless, so whenever you decide to join, you can start the series at any time that you like. All right, so let's get started then. Alright my soul family, welcome this evening. Make sure to grab that extra cup of coffee to really keep you awake, alert this beautiful evening, late evening into night, and we're going to enjoy every single word that Jesus has to teach us today. Because remember, A Course in Miracles are Jesus' teachings when he was alive, when he was preaching, and all of it was passed down orally. So this is a translation for, if you don't know, if you didn't see the first episode, this is a translation from two powerful authors who received the channeling basically of what Jesus taught. And we all know that basically Jesus represents love and healing. Those are his two main themes when we think of Jesus Christ, and of course also enlightenment, because the term Christ put after his death, because remember when he was born he was only a baby Jesus of Nazareth, but it was after the resurrection that he became Christ. And Christ means the anointed one, it means the chosen one, hence enlightened one, right? So this is our path and the secret key to reaching our enlightenment, which is so important. So we've been doing a lot of deep studying through this series, and we're continuing. We're 1/3 there till we finish the lessons, and this is where it really gets deeper now, the second third of the lessons, specifically on chapter 8. Alright, so let's continue. Or should I say, let's get started. The journey back. We start always with the introduction. You are hampered in your progress by your demands to know what you do not know. So this is where everybody starts. It's the beginning point to prior the enlightenment, when you really don't know. And we learned this in the first chapters, that there is a difference between assumptions, which is why we are always told never to assume. But if you're in this state of assumption, or that you think you know something when it comes to the spiritual journey, then this means that you're not knowing, and hence you're not yet enlightened. Because when you become enlightened, you just know. You know things, your intuition is sharpened, and you trust this as well. So this is actually a way of holding on to deprivation, which means lack, a lack of something. You cannot reasonably object to following instructions in a course for knowing on the grounds that you do not know. So the need for the course is implicit in your objection. Knowledge is not the motivation for learning this course, right? Because that would be your ego motivating you to want to learn more, and also even be the all-knowing one, which that's what the ego's intentions are. And that's definitely not of love and light. That's not what your higher self promotes. That's even narcissism to an extent. So peace is, right? We seek this enlightenment, we seek this knowledge and wisdom for inner peace. And then of course to guide others, illuminate the world, the collective. So as the prerequisite for knowledge, peace must be learned. This is only because those who are in conflict are not peaceful, right? You cannot be on both. Remember, there is no in between of fear or love. You're either in your ego and your higher self. And peace is the condition of knowledge, because it is the condition of the kingdom. And that's also what helps you to reach and understand this knowledge, is when you're in peace, is when you can really hear clearly, when you have an empty mind. So knowledge will be restored when you meet its conditions. So if you've lost your way for whatever reason, just come back to this peace. And that is the first unraveling of then reaching the knowledge, the wisdom, and then the enlightenment. This is not a bargain made by God, who makes no bargains, right? It is merely the result of your misuse of his laws on behalf of a will that is not his. Knowledge is his will. And that's a beautiful will, right? That he wants us to be knowledgeable, which just seems contrary from what the book of Genesis teaches us, right? In the book of Genesis, Satan, basically the snake, made Adam and Eve believe that they weren't allowed of the tree of knowledge. And that's almost what tempted them to want it more. But God never said that they would never have of this knowledge, right? It was a test of anything when he said, do not eat of this tree, basically. And then that's when the snake turned them against God, right? And that's what basically the opposite of God, the devil, will do, and what was the cause of the fall of many angels, which we did learn in my resurrection presentation series, which you can get access to all these series and presentations which have a lot to do with the resurrection and Jesus on my website, christophermers.com/lightworker-university. It will really also help to tie this all in together with the Course in Miracles. So if you are opposing his will, how can you have knowledge? I have told you what knowledge offers you, but it is clear that you do not regard this as wholly desirable. If you did, you would hardly be willing to throw it away so readily when the ego asks for your allegiance. The distraction of the ego seems to interfere with your learning, but the ego has no power to distract you unless you give it the power. The ego's voice is an hallucination. You cannot expect it to say, I am not real. Hallucinations are inaccurate perceptions of reality. Yet you are not asked to dispel them alone. You are merely asked to evaluate them in terms of their results to you. So if you do not want them on the basis of loss of peace, they will be removed from your mind for you. Every response to the ego is a call to war, and war does deprive you of peace. Yet in this war, there is no opponent. And this is the reinterpretation of reality which you must make to secure peace, and the only one that you need ever make. And now we move on to section 2. The direction of the curriculum. Those whom you perceive as opponents are part of your peace, right? So whatever you see as an enemy even, or the opposite, is a part of your peace, because it's probably a part of your learning journey, which you are giving up by attacking them, right? How can you have what you give up? You share to have, but you do not give it up yourself. When you give up peace, you are excluding yourself from it. And this is a condition which is so alien to the kingdom that you cannot understand the state which prevails within it. Your past learning must have taught you the wrong things simply because it has not made you happy. And on this basis alone, its value should be questioned. If learning aims at change, and that is always its purpose, right? Because learning will always aim to change you in some way. Are you satisfied then with the changes that your learning has brought you basically up to this point? Dissatisfaction with learning outcomes must be a sign of learning failure, since it means that you did not get what you want. And that's almost like a very sad story, right? You feel like a failure because you didn't get the results that you wanted, but that's also the lesson, right? Because then next time you can do it better. So the curriculum of the atonement is the opposite of the curriculum you have established for yourselves but so is its outcome. So if the outcome of yours has made you unhappy, and if you want a different one, a change in the curriculum is obviously necessary. The first change that must be introduced is a change in direction. A meaningful curriculum cannot be inconsistent. So again, redirection is always a cause of some kind of either rejection or failure or even feeling of dissatisfaction. That's because there is a better way, right? So if it is planned by two teachers, each believing in diametrically opposed ideas, then it cannot be integrated. If it is carried out by these two teachers simultaneously, then each one merely interferes with the other. And this leads to fluctuation but not to change. Right? Because you can also fluctuate and then keep that homeostasis basically going if you don't really change something of the system. That's almost like trying to mask the issue. The volatile have no direction. They cannot choose one because they cannot relinquish the other, even if the other does not exist. So their conflicted curriculum teaches them all directions exist and gives them no rationality for choice. And the total senselessness of such a curriculum must be fully recognized before a real change in direction becomes possible. You cannot learn simultaneously from two teachers who are in total disagreement about everything, right? Because then they're contradicting each other. That can happen with like two contradicting parents, and then the child gets confused and then they fail to really learn anything because they're not really experiencing any consistency between the parenting, right? So their joint curriculum presents an impossible learning task. They are teaching you entirely different things in entirely different ways, which might be possible except for the crucial fact that both are teaching you about yourself. Your reality is unaffected by both, but if you listen to both, your mind will be split about what your reality is. Now take that in for a second. And I know it sounds complicated, but really it's more simpler than we can put it into words. So we need to realize that our mind and our reality are very interconnected, because what we tell our mind is what we're going to experience in our reality. And that's how also we manifest what we create in our reality. So this brings us to section 3, the rationality for choice, the choice to create the reality of your dreams and the one that you want, and the choice to either live through your higher self or your ego. Alright, let's continue then with section 3, the rationality for choice. There is a rationality for choice. Only one teacher knows what your reality is. If learning that is the purpose of the curriculum, you must learn it of Him, which is God, Jesus, His Son, right? The ego does not know what it's trying to teach. It is trying to teach you what you are without knowing it. The ego is expert only in confusion, which creates doubt and fears, right? It does not understand or even align with anything else. As a teacher, then, it is totally confused and totally confusing. Even if you could disregard the Holy Spirit entirely, which is quite impossible, you can learn nothing from the ego because the ego knows nothing. So is there any possible reason for choosing a teacher such as this? Does the total disregard of anything it teaches make anything but sense? And is this the teacher to whom a son of God should turn to find himself? The ego has never given you a sensible answer to anything, simply on the grounds of your own experience with the ego's teaching. Should not this alone disqualify it as your future teacher? Yet the ego has done more harm to your learning than this alone. And learning is joyful if it leads you along your natural path and facilitates the development of what you have. When you are taught against your nature, however, you will lose by your learning, because your learning will imprison you, and your will is in your nature, and therefore cannot go against it. The ego cannot teach you anything as long as your will is free, because you will not listen to it. It is not your will to be imprisoned because your will is free. And that is why the ego is the denial of free will. It is never God who coerces you, because he shares his will with you, right? Through this I am. His voice teaches only his will, but that is not the Holy Spirit's lesson, because that is what you are. So the lesson is that your will and God's cannot be out of accord, because they are one. Again, I am one, right? This is the undoing of everything the ego tries to teach. It is not then only the direction of the curriculum which must be unconflicted, but also the content. The ego wants to teach you that you want to oppose God's will, and this unnatural lesson cannot be learned, but the attempt to learn it is a violation of your own freedom and makes you afraid of your will because it is free. The Holy Spirit opposes any imprisoning of the will of a son of God, knowing that the will of the Son is the Father's. The Holy Spirit leads you steadily along the path of freedom, teaching you how to disregard or look beyond everything that would hold you back. So we said before that the Holy Spirit teaches you the difference between pain and joy. And that is the same as saying that he teaches you the difference between imprisonment and freedom. You cannot make this distinction without him. And that is because you have taught yourself that imprisonment is freedom. Believing them to be the same, how can you tell them apart? Can you ask the part of your mind that taught you to believe they are the same to teach you the difference between them? The Holy Spirit's teaching takes only one direction and has only one goal. His direction is freedom and his goal is God. And I did underline that because that's what the goal of the Holy Spirit is at the end of the day, is to take you back to God, which is the journey back, right? Yet he cannot conceive of God without you. You need to put in your part. It needs to be consensual, right? Because it is not God's will to be without you. When you have learned that your will is God's, you could no more will to be without him than he could will to be without you. And this is freedom and this is joy. Deny yourself this and you are denying God his kingdom, because he created you for this. And when we said all power and glory are yours because the kingdom is his, this is what we meant. The will of God is without limit, and all power and glory lie within it. It is boundless in strength and in love and in peace. It has no boundaries because its extension is unlimited. And it encompasses all things because it created all things. And by creating all things, it made them part of itself. You are the will of God because this is how you were created. Because your Creator creates only like himself. You are like him. You are part of him who is all power and glory, and are therefore as unlimited as he is. So to what else except all power and glory can the Holy Spirit appeal to restore God's kingdom? His appeal then is merely to what the kingdom is, and for its own acknowledgement of what it is. And when you acknowledge this, you bring the acknowledgement automatically to everyone, because you have acknowledged everyone. And by your recognition, you awaken theirs, and through theirs, yours is extended. Awakening runs easily and gladly through the kingdom in answer to the call of God. And this is the natural response of every son of God to the voice of his Creator, because it is the voice for his creations and for his own extension, which is you, right? And this then brings us to section 4, the holy encounter, aka the awakening. That's when you encounter God and you start to awaken on your spiritual journey. Glory be to God in the highest and to you, because he has so willed it. Ask and it shall be given you, because it has already been given. ask for light and learn that you are light. And if you want understanding and enlightenment, you will learn it, because your will to learn it is your decision to listen to the teacher who knows of light and can therefore teach it to you. There is no limit on your learning, because there is no limit on your minds. There is no limit on his will to teach, because he was created by unlimited will in order to teach. So knowing this, knowing his function perfectly, he wills to fulfill it perfectly, because that is his joy and yours. And to fulfill the will of God perfectly is the only joy and peace that can be fully known, because it is the only function that can be fully experienced. And when this is accomplished, then there is no other experience. Yet the wish for other experience will block its accomplishment, because God's will cannot be forced upon you, being an experience of total willingness. The Holy Spirit knows how to teach this, but you do not. And that is why you need him, and why God gave him to you. Only his teaching will release your will to God's, uniting it with his power and glory, and establishing them as yours. You share them as God shares them, because this is the natural outcome of their being. The will of Father and the Son are one together by their extension, which is the Trinity, right? God Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And their extension is the result of their oneness, holding their unity together by extending their joint will. And this is perfect creation, by the perfectly created in union with perfect Creator. The Father must give fatherhood to his Son, because his own fatherhood must be extended outward. And you who belong in God have the holy function of extending his fatherhood by placing no limits upon it. Let the Holy Spirit teach you how to do this, for you will know what it means of God himself. So when you meet anyone, remember it is a holy encounter. As you see him, you will see yourself. And as you treat him, you will treat yourself. As you think of him, you will think of yourself. Never forget this, for in him you will find yourself, or lose sight of yourself. So whenever two sons of God meet, they are given another chance at salvation. Do not leave anyone without giving salvation to him and receiving it yourself, for I am always there with you in remembrance of you. The goal of the curriculum, regardless of the teacher you choose, is to know thyself. There is nothing else to learn. Everyone is looking for himself and for the power and glory he thinks he has lost. So whenever you're with anyone, you have another opportunity to find them. Your power and glory are in him, because they are yours. The ego tries to find them in yourself, because it does not know where to look. The Holy Spirit teaches you that if you look only at yourself, you cannot find yourself, because that is not what you are. So whenever you are with a brother, you are learning what you are, because you are teaching what you are, and he will respond either with pain or with joy, depending on which teacher you're following. He will be imprisoned or released according to your decision, and so will you. So never forget your responsibility to him, because it is your responsibility to yourself. Give him his place in the kingdom, and you will have yours. The kingdom cannot be found alone, and you who are the kingdom cannot find yourselves alone. So you are never alone, right? To achieve the goal of the curriculum, then, you cannot listen to the ego. Its purpose is to defeat its own goal. The ego does not know this, because it does not know anything. But you can know this, and you will know it if you are willing to look at what the ego has made of you. This is your responsibility, because once you have done this, you will accept the atonement for yourself. What other choice could you make? Having made this choice, you will begin to learn and understand why you have believed that, When you met someone else, you had thought that he was someone else. And then every holy encounter in which you enter fully will teach you this is not so. You can encounter only part of yourself because you are part of God, who is everything. His power and glory are everywhere, and you cannot be excluded from them. The ego teaches that your strength is in you alone. The Holy Spirit teaches that all strength is in God and therefore in you. God wills no one suffer. He does not will anyone to suffer for a wrong decision, including you. So that is why He has given you the means for undoing it through His power and glory. All your wrong decisions are undone, completely releasing you and your brothers from every imprisoning thought any part of the sonship has accepted. Wrong decisions have no power because they are not true. The imprisonment which they seem to produce is no more true than they are. Power and glory belong to God alone. That's where we humble ourselves before God. So do you. God gives whatever belongs to Him because He gives of Himself and everything belongs to Him. Giving of yourself is the function that He gave you. Fulfilling it perfectly will teach you what you have of Him, and this will teach you what you are in Him. You cannot be powerless to do this because this is your power. Glory is God's gift to you because that is what He is. So see this glory everywhere to learn what you are. And then this brings us to section 5, the light of the world, which we all know is Jesus Christ. Alright, so let's continue then. If God's will for you is complete peace and joy, unless you experience only this, you must be refusing to acknowledge His will. His will does not vacillate, being changeless forever. When you are not at peace, it can only be because you do not believe you are in Him. Yet He is all in all. His peace is complete, and you must be included in it. His laws govern you because they govern everything. You cannot exempt yourself from His laws, only although you can disobey them. Yet if you do, and only if you do, you will feel lonely and helpless because you are denying yourself everything. I am come as a light into a world that does deny itself everything. It does this simply by dissociating itself from everything, and it is therefore an illusion of isolation maintained by fear of the same loneliness which is its illusion. I have told you that I am with you always, even to the end of the world. No matter where you go, right? You're never alone. And that is why I am the light of the world. If I am with you in the loneliness of the world, the loneliness is gone. And you cannot maintain the illusion of loneliness if you are not alone. My purpose then is to overcome the world. I do not attack it, but my light must dispel it. Because of what it is, right? Dispel the darkness that's in the world. Light does not attack darkness, because remember this, that the light, there can be no light without any darkness, because the light stems from darkness, right? But it does shine it away, right? Just like daylight will overcome the night, and the night will be gone till the next night, right? So if my light goes with you everywhere, you shine it away with me. The light becomes ours, and you cannot abide in darkness any more than darkness can abide wherever you go. The remembrance of me is the remembrance of yourself and of Him who sent me to you. You were in darkness until God's will was done completely by any part of the sonship. So when this was done, it was perfectly accomplished by all. How else could it be perfectly accomplished? My mission was simply to unite the will of the sonship with the will of the Father by being aware of the Father's will myself. And this is the awareness that I came to give you. And your problem in accepting it is the problem of this world. Dispelling it it is salvation. And in this sense, I am the salvation of the world. The world must despise and reject me because the world is the belief that love is impossible. Your reactions to me are the reactions of the world to God. And if you will accept the fact that I am with you, you are denying the world and accepting God. My will is His, and your will to hear me is the decision to hear His voice and abide in His will. And as God sent me to you, so will I send you to others, and I will go to them with you so that we can teach them union and peace. And that is our mission, right? To show up for others and then teach them the way, like Jesus did, right? That's why He had followers. So do you not think the world needs peace as much as you do? Do you not want to give it to the world as much as you want to receive it? For unless you do, you will not receive it. And if you will to have it of me, you must give it. Rehabilitation does not come from anyone else. You can have guidance from without, but you must accept it first from within. The guidance must become what you want, or it will be meaningless to you. This is why rehabilitation is a collaborative venture with heaven, right? I wrote that in the little margin. I can tell you what to do, but this will not help you unless you collaborate by believing that I know what to do, and then you actually do it, right? Only then will your mind choose to follow me. Without your will, you cannot be rehabilitated. Motivation to be healed is the crucial factor in rehabilitation. And without this, you are deciding against healing, and your veto of my will for you makes healing impossible. If healing is our joint will, unless our wills are joined, you cannot be healed. This is obvious when you consider what healing is for. Healing is the way in which the separation is overcome. Separation is overcome by union. It cannot be overcome by separating. So the will to unite must be unequivocal, or the will itself is divided or not whole. Your will is the means by which you determine your own condition, because will is the mechanism of decision. It is the power by which you separate or join and experience pain or joy accordingly. My will cannot overcome yours, because yours is as powerful as mine. And if it were not so, the sons of God would be unequal. All things are possible through our joint will, but my will alone cannot help you. Your will is as free as mine, and God Himself would not go against it. I cannot will what God does not will. I can offer you my will to make yours invincible by the sharing, but I cannot oppose yours without competing with it and thereby violating God's will for you. Nothing God created can oppose your will, as nothing God created can oppose His. God gave your will its power, which I can only acknowledge in honor of His. So if you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing that we are alike. And if you want to be different, I will wait until you change your mind. I can teach you, but only you can choose to listen to my teaching. How else can it be if God's kingdom is freedom? Freedom cannot be learned by tyranny of any kind, and the perfect equality of all God's sons cannot be recognized through the dominion of one will over another. God's sons are equal in will, all being the will of their Father. And this is the only lesson I came to teach, knowing that it is true. When your will is not mine, it is not our Father's. This means that you have imprisoned yours and have not let it be free. Of yourselves you can do nothing, because of yourselves you are nothing. I am nothing without the Father, and you are nothing without me, because by denying the Father you deny yourself. And I will always remember you, and in my remembrance of you lies your remembrance of yourself. And in our remembrance of each other lies our remembrance of God, and in this remembrance lies your freedom, because your freedom is in Him. So join them with me in praise of Him and you whom He created. And and this is our gift of gratitude to him, which he will share with all his creations, to whom he gives equally whatever is acceptable to him. So if you want to experience freedom, basically, it's about remembering that this all lies within God through the whole atonement process, which is what this whole A Course in Miracles is about. So join them with me in praise of him and you whom he created. This is our gift of gratitude to him, which he will share with all his creations, to whom he gives equally whatever is acceptable to him. Because it is acceptable to him, it is the gift of freedom, which is his will for all his sons. And by offering freedom, you will be free. Freedom is the only gift that you can offer to God's sons, being an acknowledgement of what they are and what he is. Freedom is creation because it is love. And let's underline this. And what you seek to imprison, you do not love. So therefore, when you seek to imprison anyone, including yourself, you do not love him and you cannot identify with him. When you imprison yourself, you're losing sight of your true identification with me and with the Father. Your identification is with the Father and with the Son. It cannot be with one and not the other. So if you are part of one, you must be part of the other because they are one. So the Holy Trinity is holy because it is one. And let's definitely put like a little star next to that. If you exclude yourself from this union, then you're perceiving the Holy Trinity as separated. You must be included in it because it is everything. And unless you take your place in it and fulfill your function as a part of it, it is as bereft as you are. No part of it can be imprisoned if its truth is to be known. Can you be separated from your identification and be at peace? Probably not, right? Dissociation is not a solution, it is a delusion. And the delusional believe that the truth will assail them, and so they do not see it because they prefer the delusion, judging truth as something they do not want. They perceive deception and block knowledge. Help them by offering them your unified will on their behalf, as I am offering you mine on yours. Alone we can do nothing, but together our wills fuse into something whose power is far beyond the power of its separate parts. And by not being separate, the will of God is established in ours and as ours. And this will is invincible because it is undivided. The undivided will of the sonship is the perfect creator, being wholly in the likeness of God, whose will it is. You cannot be exempt from it if you are to understand what it is and what you are. And by separating your will from mine, you are exempting yourself from the will of God, which is yourself. Yet to heal is still to make whole. Therefore, to heal is to unite with those who are like you, because perceiving this likeness is to recognize the Father. If your perfection is in Him and only in Him, how can you know it without recognizing Him? The recognition of God is the recognition of yourself, and there is no separation of God and His creation. You will learn this as you learn that there is no separation of your will and mine. Let the love of God shine upon you by your acceptance of me. My reality is yours and His. And by joining your will with mine, you are signifying your awareness that the will of God is one. And God's oneness and ours are not separate because His oneness encompasses ours. And to join with me is to restore His power to you because we are sharing it. I offer you only the recognition of His power in you, but in that lies all truth. As we unite with Him. Glory be to the union of God and His holy sons. All glory lies in them because they are united, and the miracles we do bear witness to the will of the Father for His Son, and to our joy in uniting with His will for us. And when you unite with me, you are uniting without the ego, because I have renounced the ego in myself and therefore cannot unite with yours. So our union is therefore the way to renounce the ego in yourself. The truth in both of us is beyond the ego, and by willing that, you have gone beyond it towards truth. Our success in transcending the ego is guaranteed by God, and I can share my perfect confidence in His promise because I know He gave me this confidence for both of us and all of us. I bring God's peace back to all His children because I received it of Him for us all. Nothing can prevail against our united wills because nothing can prevail against God's. Would you know the will of God for you? Ask it of me who knows it for you, and you will find it. I will deny you nothing as God denies me nothing.